What's up, my bitch-ass goats? Chatting With is now a podcast. You can listen to the audio only on wherever you get your podcasts. I put up all the old Chatting Withs up there. Be sure to give it a review on there if you can. Thank you so much to everyone that emailed me. I got like 4 or 5 Chatting Withs in the queue now. I'm excited. Starting with this one, Tristan. He's a bodybuilder and he uses steroids and he's a search engine of knowledge on all things steroids. It's awesome. It's great to talk to people. We got to talk to each other more as a society. New viewpoints, new opinions, expand our minds. It's cathartic to not only get stuff off your chest, but also gain new perspectives. And when we're not connecting with other people, other fellow humans, you're going to be going down a bad rabbit hole. That's why I'm excited today to tell you about BetterHelp. Today's sponsor. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that makes it easy to get matched with a licensed therapist who can help you work through whatever you're going through. You can have therapy sessions via video chat, phone, text, whatever works for you. With over 30,000 therapists in their network, BetterHelp can match you with someone who specializes in the areas that you need help with. And if you don't feel like your therapist is the right fit, you can easily switch to someone new at no additional cost. If you're ready to try therapy and get a new perspective on your challenges, go to betterhelp.com/LAHWF or select LAHWF at sign up for a special discount on your first month. You're in control. Thank you. Here's the video. Hey, I'm Andrew Hales. Welcome to another edition of Chatting With. I'm here with Tristan. He's a anabolic steroid user. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be on.
See, you're out in Vancouver. You just got back from work. And did you do steroids today?
Not today. I usually do it before bed. That's like generally the time that's like easiest for me to like kind of remember. So at nighttime, take the syringe.
I would have thought it was like right before a workout.
No, so it doesn't work like that. Like there's certain, anabolics you can take before your workout that will actually have acute effects prior to your workout and actually help with like, aggression and strength and things like that, or even like water retention, for example, to like lube up your joints and whatnot. But generally it's kind of like a systematic thing, kind of like similar to how like your endogenous testosterone works. It's kind of always, occurring. So,
right.
It's meant to like improve, your muscle building capabilities throughout the entire day and not just, during your workout. Because, when you go and work out, you're recovering throughout the next like 24 hours during like your next workout and even after that. So, the more testosterone that you have circulating in your body, the more you're going to recover better. And that's kind of like the big thing is like, it increases your strength and, aggression in the gym and stuff like that. But, the best thing that it's for, and like UFC fighters, for example, is recovery. Recovery is the most important thing. The more that you can train and the more that you can recover, the more, success that you're going to have.
That's when the muscles grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So when, 6 years now, you've been doing steroids.
I've been doing them since I was 23 years old. I'm 28 now. So about 5 years. Yeah.
All right. Is there any side effects that you don't like?
There's a ton of side effects.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned you're trying to minimize the shitty parts of it, and you're trying to make it safe.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm trying to make it as safe as possible.
So how are you doing that?
Well, firstly, like there's no way that you can like fully attenuate all of like the negative health ramifications, because regardless of what you're doing to prevent, certain things from happening, you're always going to get, negative health consequences. But it's, my job for me as like a health conscious individual that still wants to like, enjoy the realm of enhancement to improve my health in a lot of ways. So, I could go off a list of different, negative health ramifications. Like, for example, there's gynecomastia is a big one that a lot of bodybuilders are very health conscious of. Some will even...
And that's man tits, right?
Yeah. Okay. You get like a big fat lump underneath your nipple. Okay. Like a lot of people do, this kind of came into my head, but a lot of guys before like shoots, they'll have like puffy nipples. And they'll flick their nipples and it like makes it smaller right after. It's like a weird like bodybuilding trick where like dudes will like flick it. But
I didn't know that.
yeah, and gynecomastia is kind of caused by elevated estrogen levels. So the more estrogen you have, like if a guy drinks like a ton of beer all the time, like you might actually get like man tits, like kind of similar to like someone that's, you know, overweight or obese. They might like develop man tits, and it's not just
no,
like
I had man tits for a second. Yeah.
Did it go away?
Well, yeah, it looks a lot better. Yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, I've been running, whatever. So
yeah, I think just overall kind of fat loss in general is gonna help improve that. Kind of the other way around too is that it doesn't really like actually like go away. That's like the crappy part is that once you get it, you can't really get it out unless you actually have like it's surgically removed. So a lot of the bodybuilders, this is kind of crazy, but
so it's permanent.
Yeah, so it's permanent until you get it surgically removed. So people will go to like Mexico or they'll pay just for $5,000, $10,000 surgery to get it removed so that they can take more stuff. So right now, I don't take certain things because it will aggravate it and make it worse. I don't want to go, you know, get surgery because that sucks. Yeah. So people will they'll get the surgery just so that they can take drugs that are more aligned with just increasing a lot of muscle mass so that they don't even have to worry about getting the gynecomastia. Whereas for me, for example, I won't take as much, you know, oral steroids because it's more risk of inflating my estrogen to a level. And then there's other things that you can take like aromatase inhibitors, which prevents the aromatization of testosterone into estrogen. But those are like really unhealthy for you, so you don't want to take them. I don't generally take them. There's certain like drug protocols that you can take that my coach kind of helps me with a little bit in attenuating kind of like that estrogen level. So there's like something called like primobolan, for example. You can take it with your testosterone. It's a little bit more expensive, but it will reduce the amount of estrogen that you get. So
okay, when did you want to start becoming a bodybuilder?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to university. So I was a smaller kid. It was kind of like a lot of gym bodybuilders or just people that go to the gym. They want to get girls, right? So that was me. I was like a really repressed kid, and I wanted to work out. And it was really helpful, and it was great, and I loved it. But I fell in love with the gym more so than like, you know, getting women or anything like that. It became like an obsession, and I'm now at this point where I'm so big that it almost deters women in a way. Like a lot of when you see me in public, I'm like twice the size of like a random guy, but the girl will find that other guy more attractive because this is just like absurdity.
I've heard like girls they don't like they see that and they kind of they're intimidated and they feel like you might judge their body more because you're like way into that, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. These are just theories in my head. Like they like dad bods because they can just relax, you know, or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of mass is kind of like scary to them, especially in like the gym when I'm like in a stringer and like all my veins are popping and I just look huge and I'm acting angry and stuff like that. It's a little bit intimidating. I kind of feel like a douchebag, but it's like it makes it more enjoyable for me.
But yeah, it feels good, right? Like
it feels amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know that feeling in the gym when you get like a big chest pump and like your endorphins are flying. Like it's so much more exacerbated when you're using steroids. Everything's just like so much more enhanced, and you can just do so much more. You can lift more. There's more blood flowing. There's more vasodilation, and everything's just like so much more enhanced. That's what.
So like working out is like euphoric.
Very much so, but even more so in the enhanced realm.
Right. All right. So
going back.
Yeah, so you want to be a bodybuilder.
So going back, so yeah, I got cut from a rugby team. That was why I first started working out as well, is because I wanted to, and then getting girls and stuff like that. I fell in love with the gym. And then as I became friends with, one of the more popular YouTubers that's in this kind of anabolic steroid space and harm prevention and like stuff like that, they kind of gave me the confidence to do it. I wouldn't have done it otherwise because wouldn't have felt as safe because I knew how much knowledge you need to have in order to do it safely. So once I kind of had that backbone of like, and another thing was like finances too. Like I had my finances in order. It gets really expensive when you're trying to do it safely. Like steroids aren't that expensive if you just like just buy the oil and then get the syringes. Like anyone could do it, as bad as that sounds, but that's like a really unsafe way of doing it. Like you're not getting any blood work and things like that. But once I was mature enough, I made that choice. I was able to, reconcile with the fact that I wanted to do this. I was okay with, essentially cutting off a little bit of my life just so that I can have a little bit more enjoyment.
Wow.
In the gym and accomplish goals that I never would have been capable of doing it naturally.
That's noble of you to admit that. A lot of people, I feel like, wouldn't even admit that,
Yeah. Well, there's other. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you go to the doc. So you go through like a real doctor out in Canada.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that I do. So the first thing is it's kind of hard in Canada because even though it's free and we get free healthcare, they oftentimes won't just give you whatever you want. So a lot of times I've had to like lie and stuff like that to try and like get blood work done. And then there's sometimes where I'll just get frustrated and I'll actually go to the US and I'll drive across the border, go get my blood work done, pay for it, and then I'm good. There was another thing where I had a health scare. I thought my heart was like growing or something like that. And I thought I was starting to have cardiovascular issues because like, it was a weird story, but I went to the US and we were eating at this like steak restaurant and we had just like mountains of meat. And afterwards I felt like my heart was stopping. So I like you got aspirin for it because it thins your blood. So I took a bunch of aspirin and then it like helped. But then I was like nervous afterwards. My blood work turned to be out to be okay. But then I got a CCTA scan, which is like kind of like a CAT scan for your heart. And it measures the, aorta size, for example, and it sees if anything's been enlarged, which it hadn't. So I was really happy about that. But it was also like a $2,000 bill of me going to the US and going to get that done. And
okay.
Yeah.
How much? Wait. Okay. So you get it. Why did you get the blood work in the US?
That was just because I was annoyed with waiting. Like sometimes when you get really particular about what you want, the doctors will be like, oh, okay, you need to pay for that. Yeah. And I kind of got like annoyed. So I was like, it's weird. Like you're sitting on the phone, they're kind of like judging you at the same time. And they're like, oh, you can't get that because you want it for purposes that we're not allowed to like give it to you for free for. So it's like,
got it.
I don't know. You can make a lot of like moral arguments about that and whatnot, but it was a little bit frustrating. So I just went to the US and got it done that way.
So steroids, where do you get them from?
So typically they're from UGLs, which is an underground lab. And you can find them through like forums and whatnot.
So it's a black market then.
Yeah,
you're buying it illegally, or
so it's kind of like a gray area in Canada. It's less so a gray area in the US. It is pretty much illegal. It's a Schedule 3 substance.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like heroin's on that similar list, or I forget what other drugs are on there. But in Canada, it's for personal use. It's actually like decriminalized. Like it's not. They won't go after you or anything like that. They're not worried about it. It's for like if you're importing it or something like that, that's where it starts to get like you'll get busted and you'll start getting a lot of negative consequences for it. But for like the random like gym goer, they don't care about you. They're not really worried about it. So it's not as like worrying.
How often do you take it?
Every day. Yeah.
So you took it today?
Well, I'll take it tonight.
No, you're going to take it tonight, right?
Well, technically I did take it today, but it was at like 2 a.m. I stay up quite late for work and stuff like that and like try to create my own YouTube videos and whatnot. But normally people won't take it every day. Like going back to kind of the gynecomastia thing. So another way that people will lower their estrogen is that they take it every day. So if you take it like once a week and you take a really big dose, your testosterone kind of like goes like this and it flies up and then it comes back down and you get a big crash. And that's what causes hormone fluctuations, which can, exacerbate some of those negative health ramifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much does it cost you?
So, depends where you get it, but like typically a bottle of testosterone and anthe, which is like your most bioidentical, hormone that most people are going to be taking is like $40 to $50 a bottle, a vial. And depending on how much you take, like that might last you like a month, 2 months.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say you're doing that every day, like
Yeah.
money bags over here.
No, it's kind of crazy because you can, you can do like
What's the name of it?
the like steroid.
Yeah.
So there's tons of different names for all sorts of different compounds. There's testosterone enanthate. There's different like esters. So testosterone enanthate is kind of like a moderately long ester, and then there's like propionate, which is like a shorter ester, which just means that it has a shorter half-life and it can like leave your body sooner. And then there's like longer ones, and then there's like mixed ones, and then there's like,
what's the most popular one?
So people like to popularize one called Tren, which is like,
I've heard of that. I think I read about that somewhere on Reddit.
There's even like fitness influencers that like name themselves after it, which is like pretty insane because it's like one of the most like dangerous for the most part. They literally give it to, horses is how it was like typically used. Or no, sorry, cows. They give it to like cattle to like increase muscle mass. But there's a lot of different like stories we could talk about. I've taken it before. And it's a miraculous drug, but at the same time, it like ruins your sleep. It's incredibly kidney toxic. And it makes you incredibly aggressive.
Okay.
It's a wild drug. So it's crazy that people like popularize it and talk about it so much that like kids think they should be like taking this drug. And when you think about it, actually objectively, it's not even that great of a compound unless you're a like bodybuilder on a prep trying to get to like 3% body fat. Otherwise, it's not even really that great.
What's the one that you take?
So I take 3 or 4 different drugs. So I take primobolan enanthate, and then I take testosterone enanthate. I take nandrolone, which is also called Deca, and then I also take some other peptides as well. So there's ipamorelin, which will increase your growth hormone, and then I take insulin as well, a long-acting insulin.
Wow, like what diabetics take?
Yeah, similar to what diabetics would take. That's kind of like a whole kind of different realm that, a lot of people don't even really ever touch, even if they do touch anabolic steroids. But it's something that will...
I thought insulin or the release of it like builds fat.
It can, but it's mostly to like increase carbohydrate absorption. So when you take it, you're going to start... So like when you have someone that's like insulin resistant, for example, so like a diabetic, insulin goes in, or when you eat carbs are like high complex carb sources, it's going to go into your body. You're going to start, your body needs to release insulin so that your cells start absorbing those nutrients and they start utilizing them. Same with like fat. If you're insulin resistant, that's not going to happen. And the sugars will still circulate. Your blood sugar is going to stay higher, and it'll start settling in that area and actually start developing like adipose tissue in like your arteries. And that's when you can like start having a lot of different issues. For a bodybuilder, when you're like insulin sensitive, you're going to start absorbing a lot of those nutrients, and it's going to help with muscle size, muscle pumps, replenishing glycogen. Your workouts are going to be better. It also makes me way more hungry. And I'm really hungry.
That's what puzzles me. Like I feel like I've from what I've read, that's like the number one thing that makes people fat and overweight. And when you inject insulin, I feel like that would work against you. But yeah, I guess if it's making you work out harder, then that works too.
Yeah. You just get a lot more like carbohydrate absorption, and then it has a lot of other like satellite effects, like the increased IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor, which can help increase satellite cell, muscle cell proliferation and differentiation, and then increased skeletal muscle size as well.
Encyclopedia over here. All right, let me close my door here once.
Yeah, no worries.
First week, You first week you're on it. Did you feel anything even the very next day after the first time?
Because the half-life is like generally like 2 to 3 weeks, you don't feel anything until probably the third week. And it's kind of crazy. Like you don't know when it's going to kind of hit. And like you go into the gym one day and then everything feels 10 pounds lighter. It's really weird.
That is
It's
so
a really
weird.
weird effect. Yeah.
Wow.
So like nothing really changes like that much unless you're taking something kind of like severe, like the trend, for example. You might, start getting like really weird effects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you drink pre-workout?
Tons of beer. I usually leverage a lot of stimulants throughout the day for my work. Like I have a really high paced job, and I like to keep my caffeine or anything that I take during the day. I used to take things like kratom, for example,
Yeah, I love
for my
kratom.
workouts. But I recently just quit that, thankfully.
Yeah, because
So,
that's not good for testosterone. Yeah.
when you're injecting it though, it
Kratom?
won't affect. Yeah, it won't. No,
I didn't
sorry,
know you.
sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I don't inject
Yeah.
any kratom, but for someone that's like natural, it might lower your testosterone. I haven't seen like any real evidence of it, to be honest. I know someone. So it's kind of weird because the first company that I ever worked for was Happy Hippo Herbals. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. It's a kratom company. It's part of a conglomerate of the kind of like business that I work under called Animal Farm. And then there's Happy Hippo there, Gorilla Mind, and then another company called Intelligent Shop. So I've worked for all three. So I've taken a lot of kratom
Wow.
over the past few years. And the owner of that Happy Hippo company just made a blog where he's been taking it every day for 18 years. And he showed his blood work before and after doing that, and it showed no differences. The only thing about that is that he takes in exogenous, hormones so that it's replaced. So it's harder to say, if you took it for 18 years as like a natural,
Right.
you might, get lowered testosterone, but your testosterone might go down regardless, as you age as well and you get into your 30s,
Right. Okay, so how much total does it cost you each
So
month?
again, so if you're just getting like one vial and you're doing it for like the first time and you don't care about anything, and you just want to inject, testosterone, you could probably get away with like 1 to 2 vials and it's going to be like $100.
Okay.
Yeah. And then for me, for example, so recently I just spent, I sent $2,000 to a coach of mine who also sources like random different like peptides. So I started getting inflammation in my wrists and my forearms. So we thought it was like carpal tunnel or maybe even tendonitis. So a lot of doctors would just say, hey, you need to rest. And I can't do that. Like I need to like keep going and keep training. So one of my coaches recommended that I start injecting growth hormone, BPC 157 and TB 500, which are all like kind of like healing peptides. Growth hormone's like something that naturally occurs in your body, but there's been studies that showed that all three together in rats can like help reduce inflammation to a great extent. So I ordered $1,000 worth of peptides, $500 worth of steroids, and then $500 of coaching on top of that because he helps me with sourcing any of my cycle protocols, my diet, my training, and he takes care of all of that. So I sent in $2,000 like last week.
So yeah, in the bodybuilding world, it's not possible to win natty, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Like
Especially in
everyone's doing steroids,
every single person. Yeah.
no matter what. Yeah, and it's
Yeah, no matter
legal. Like they don't test for it.
Yeah, they don't test for it unless there's like a natural federation.
Okay.
Even some people get around it there. It's like actually pretty easy. They'll do like a urine test and it's like extremely easy to skate by that.
How do you do that?
So you could take testosterone for like 4 years straight, get like absolutely massive, and then you could come off, like 3 weeks before the show or 4 weeks before the show.
Got
And
it.
then it'll be completely out of your system before the time that you piss.
Wow.
Whereas like if they did like, something like USADA would for like the UFC and they were actually taking like blood work randomly, like if they went up to your door, that's a lot harder. So like
Okay.
it's so much more like unpredictable. Even like blood tests, for example, like if you take something like nandrolone, for example, it can be in your system for months and months and months after you even discontinue it, like prior to like after your last shot. You could still have very small remnants of it. And that's what like Ryan Garcia, for example, got caught with. He had, I forget what it was like the base compound of nandrolone was in his blood afterwards. And it was like such a small amount, like it's like very, very minuscule amount. But the only reason that you would have it in there is because you would have taken something prior to that. So
Okay.
there's a lot you could go in on that stuff, but
Arnold Schwarzenegger, he definitely took steroids.
100%, yeah.
Do you think
Like
he's
my
still...
mom, for example, like she asked me when like 5 years ago, she was just like, The Rock, he's natural, right? He doesn't take anything. I'm like, no, he's like completely enhanced. He's on everything, you know, not like everything. I don't suspect that like The Rock is taking like grams of stuff. But Arnold Schwarzenegger definitely was for the majority of his life.
Do you think he still is?
He would have to be because,
wow.
Like for a person as like productive and as like driven as he is, if you have lower testosterone, like he would need to be on like TRT, which is like your testosterone replacement therapy.
Yeah.
Something like similar to like Joe Rogan would take, for example.
Okay.
They take that to like, you know, function properly.
Right.
It's argued that, you know, anybody over the age of like 40 or 50 should be on it. Because if you're at like suboptimal levels, then you're going to have a reduced quality of life.
True. But
you know.
but he's probably off like the hard anabolic needles.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, you still use needles.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, TRT. Yeah. I was what I tried like last year was this thing called enclomiphene, I think it's called.
Okay.
You heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
didn't really feel different, but
yeah.
Yeah, it was
There's a lot of like
money.
natural stuff that you can kind of take.
No, it wasn't natural. It was I went like I did it through this online doctor website, and I had to talk to a doctor and stuff. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't really feel different after though.
It's a type of like hormone for like a lot of people take like what's the other one that people take like progesterone and like DHEA and things like that, which are, I say natural, but like I mean in terms of like you're not actually injecting like bioidentical like hormones, for example, like testosterone.
Yeah.
The same way you'd say like creatine is natural or something like that. But
okay, all right,
yeah.
Tell me what your diet looks like.
So my diet's probably like the least.
So you're eating a surplus of calories because you're trying to get big and big and big.
Yeah. So I eat 3,800 calories per day. I try to get like 220 to 250 grams of protein per day. And then I get around like 400 to 500 grams of carbohydrates. And then like 50 to 100 grams of fat. I don't have like the best diet because it's really hard for me to eat a lot, even though right now, and I have such like a busy lifestyle. So it's like, I can't go cook a full meal of like broccoli, rice, chicken, and like make it all taste good. So my diet will be like, earlier, a couple hours ago, I had like 6 eggs and like 6 pieces of toast with like avocado oil on it. And then I'll eat some like tomatoes or peppers with it. I try to eat as many like vegetables as I can to get my micronutrients in. Other times I'll just have like a protein shake and like a couple bagels. But yeah.
Wow. Okay. So
and it changes, like if I'm like dieting, for example, then I have to eat a little bit cleaner just because
less carbs, right?
Well, no, I still have like a pretty good amount of carbs. Because it still fuels my workout, and you know, the harder that I can work out on a diet means the more muscle that I'm going to be able to retain. So I don't like cut any carbohydrates at all. Generally, bodybuilders won't.
Wow.
Like that's more like a ketogenic thing for like people that aren't training as like heavy or are worried about like their performance in the gym.
Ones that are like kind of just trying to have like a Fight Club Brad Pitt body. It's like a scrawny little toned body.
Yeah.
They have to watch out for carbs, right? If that's their goal,
not
I guess.
necessarily. I mean, just to get a body like that, you like it's all about your calorie deficit. It's just calories in versus calories out. If you're going to continue to lose weight, you can do that on, McDonald's diet if you really wanted to. It might be harder just because it's like way less calorie dense. It's not as like satiating, right? Like you could have like 2,000 calories worth of like rice and chicken, and you're going to be way more full than if you had like one meal at McDonald's, right? It's going to come up to like 2,000 calories, but theoretically, in like the laws of thermodynamics, you could still theoretically lose weight that way.
Yeah, well, I saw this guy, I forgot the channel, but this guy did Taco Bell for 30 days, and he did it like almost identical to like Super Size Me and stuff. And he lost weight, or I think his blood work improved. It was crazy.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's somewhere I forgot
video.
what it's called on YouTube, but
that guy passed away, eh? The Super Size Me director?
Morgan Spurlock?
Yeah, he just passed away.
Like recently?
Yeah, like super recently, like a couple weeks ago.
I didn't know that.
It was like really sad because like a lot of people were like kind of saying, "Oh, I wonder why he died," like because he did that experiment. But I feel like it was just kind of something completely unrelated. But yeah.
Whoa, he died May 23rd. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, yeah. I mean, it's apparently he was like an alcoholic as well, and so that skewed the numbers a lot.
That's another interesting thing to talk about with bodybuilding is kind of like recreational drug use and like alcohol and things like that. Those are things that if you take it alongside, your gear usage, it can be like really, really detrimental. It's kind of like a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of sort of thing, where it's not like
synergistic.
And they can really ruin, your life. I for example, like I got off alcohol completely for 3 years, just like
good for you. Yeah, I'm almost a year now. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
So you haven't had alcohol for 3 years?
I do it like very sparingly now.
Yeah.
I kind of had like an issue with it, like where I wasn't like an alcoholic or anything, but I would like binge drink. And then I was just like, this is really bad. So I need to like chill out with this. So I kind of like went cold turkey, and I was like, I could probably go, a few years without it. So I just like got off it, and it was like really helpful for, my goals and whatnot.
Yeah. It's been awesome for just everything.
Yeah.
Have you competed as a bodybuilder before?
So that's the sad thing. I have not,
wow.
which is crazy. So during COVID, I was training for my first bodybuilding show. This was like 3 or 4 years in, and I was like 6 weeks out, and it got canceled, which is, you're dieting really, really hard at that point, and it's like extremely debilitating. Like everything's way harder in your life. You're moody. Everything's going crazy. You can't sleep. And yeah, just got canceled. And then after that, I had moved across the country for work, and work got kind of crazy and kind of busy for me. And then finally within the past like 2 years, it kind of like eased up a little bit. So I've finally been able to try to get back to it. Last year I was supposed to be preparing for it. But I had the forearm issue that I've been trying to like deal with. And I thought it was like carpal tunnel. So I stopped like working out entirely for like 2 months. So that kind of put a damper on things. And then I got sick at the beginning of this year. But finally I'm able to, I think I'm like good, and I can, bulk throughout the rest of this year and then compete next year, and see how I do.
All right. When's the date of the competition?
There's no like set date yet. So I'm just gonna, like next year, there'll probably be like a end of summer show that I'll enter and see how we do. I'm aiming to like win it. That's why I'm kind of like going all the way. It's kind of like, my kind of mindset around it right now is I want to see if I have the capability to become a pro. And that's like kind of like every bodybuilder's dream is to become an IFBB pro.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to see that if I can do that. If I don't have the genetics for it, and I don't think that I'm capable of it after next year's show, it'll be kind of just like a bucket list thing, and it'll just drop all this at that point, because I'm getting up to 30, and like at that point, there needs to be a pin in it that you set for yourself, that once you get to a certain point, you need to like cut it off because I can't do it forever. And I'm like a health conscious individual. As much as I want to like accomplish my goals, I'm also like realistic with myself. So if I think that I'm not capable of it, then I'll drop it off and I'll be okay with that.
Nice. Yeah, you're pragmatic and rational about it.
Yeah, for sure.
You seen Pumping Iron?
Yeah, I love that movie.
Great movie.
Even
if you're not into bodybuilding, it's a great film.
Yeah. Or even the Ronnie Coleman one is really cool. I don't know if you've seen that documentary. I forget what it's called, but
I might have. I remember a part where he's like constantly eating protein and he's like eating some cream of wheat thing out of a bowl.
Yeah.
I don't know. I gotta watch it again.
Yeah. I hate that food. But it's just always funny seeing him in his like police uniform, and he's like, they like adjusted his uniform to like have the muscle shirt going on because he's just so massive. He's like competing for a show. There was like a part of him like they showed him actually doing like a call, and he like goes up to this like he's like talking to this lady that's like hysterical and crying and stuff like that. And he's just like 4 times the size of her, just like sitting there like, yeah. He's talking his like high pitched kind of buddy kind of voice.
Is he's still alive or?
Yeah. Okay. He's just like, what's the best word for it? I was gonna say crippled, but I feel like that's bad to say. But
retired.
No, like he's like literally in a wheelchair, like he can't walk.
No. Shit.
Which really, really sucks. It's crazy though, because in his interviews he says the reason he was known for being a bodybuilder that lifted heavy, like the heaviest out of like most bodybuilders. Like he was, I don't know what his numbers were at, but like he was like repping out like 700 deadlifts for like 12s. But now he can't like walk. And a lot of people attribute that to like, he's one of the best bodybuilders of all time. It's kind of debated, but like even more so than Arnold Schwarzenegger, because he was the biggest of the like freaks. Like he's the biggest of the biggest.
Yeah.
And
he's like easily in the top 5 of the world.
I think he's like easily top 2.
Okay.
at least in my opinion.
I thought Arnold was the number 1. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like the 2 that could be debated.
Okay.
But I think of like the hardcore bodybuilders, they would say that Ronnie Coleman was one of the biggest and better. But Arnold's definitely a little bit more famous. That's probably why people attribute him to being like the number 1. You could like argue that he's more aesthetic, whereas like
I don't know.
Ronnie Coleman was just kind of like pure mass. But yeah, he is like the reason why he was like so crippled now is just because of all that like heavy weight that he was doing. Just like,
yeah, that's scary. So you mentioned even if it means I won't live as long, it's fine. I enjoyed myself. Like how many years off your life are we talking?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I just kind of assume that I won't want to like live that long when I'm like 80 or 90 anyways.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's going to be like, I'm going to die when I'm like 60 or something.
Okay.
I would assume that I live to 70 or 80, and I'll be kind of good with that. That's like, I'm not going to get to 90 or 100 probably, but you know.
I hear cardiovascular disease is very common in bodybuilders. Why is that?
Yeah. So things like growth hormone and testosterone are going to,
So it's because of the steroids?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, so there's a lot of like different things that you could like attribute it to. So a big killer of people is blood pressure, definitely like unmanaged blood pressure. So some people get over like, they'll be like super hypertensive care, and they need to go to like the hospital and they won't even like know it because they don't have like, I have like a blood pressure monitor like sitting next to my desk, and I measure it like weekly to make sure that I'm not, running into any issues, because that can cause like kidney issues, cause heart issues, things like that. Another thing is like just pure size. So 300 pound, 350 pound bodybuilders, you have so much more blood, so much more size that your heart needs to work harder in order to, pump all that blood throughout your body.
Right.
To facilitate all of like your natural functions and whatnot.
That doesn't scare you?
Well, it's so like, that's why I do things like the, that CT scan, for example.
Okay.
And I go there and make sure that my heart isn't increasing in size. I make sure my blood pressure is okay. I take like an ARB, which is an angiotensin 2 receptor blocker.
Man, all these drugs, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's so many different drugs that people will take.
Yeah.
With
That I've
you
never
try to
heard
like
of.
reduce. Yeah, you try to take as many that are like not super tough on your body. Like for example, that one's like a very mild blood pressure medication.
Okay.
It doesn't have any like, I haven't noticed any negative side effects from it. It helps just keep it at like
Wait, is it a
moderate level.
what's it called? A statin? Is that what it's called?
No.
It's not a statin. Okay.
I forget exactly what a statin is, but I think that's one of like the stronger ones. And there's like also like beta blockers. There's like diuretics, for example, that can help like reduce a lot of the cardiovascular issues that people have.
So yeah, COVID, before the competition that you were about to enter, you were kind of like cutting and like trying to make weight or whatever.
Yeah, so you just try to get down to as low of the body fat as possible.
Okay.
So you want to basically strip any amount of fat visibly on your body. So people would get to like, that's another thing that's like really dangerous about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's your protocol for that? How do you do that?
Yeah, so there's like drug protocols, and there's like cardio protocols, and like your exercise regimens and all those things that kind of change when you start dieting. The main thing that it's all predicated on is your calorie deficit. So normally my maintenance amount of calories that I need to eat to not gain or lose any weight would be like probably like 2,800 to 3,000 calories. So I had a coach at the time put me on 2,300 calories. And that was like, it didn't change at all. So I was just like losing weight as I went. I didn't do any cardio. This was kind of like very unconventional. Normally people would do, a certain amount of cardio every single day to help, keep their food high and then their activity high as well. You want to eat as much food as you can while still like losing weight. And then, you take a certain amount of like drugs as well. So I was taking things like testosterone still. I was taking trenbolone, which is like that one, nasty kind of gear that people talk about. My dosages weren't very high at the time, which is nice, which is good because I wasn't like utilizing, a drug protocol coach like I'm using now. So now I'm using a lot more, and I'm a lot more serious about it. I want to win. I want to make sure that I, clinch that spot. So I wasn't taking as much back then. And then there's fat loss drugs as well, which is a whole kind of like different realm. So I was taking things like clenbuterol and T3, which clenbuterol is like it's one of like the regular fat burners that a lot of bodybuilders will take, and it helps increase your heart rate and metabolism. And then T3 is kind of similar, where it's a thyroid hormone, will actually increase your body's temperature, which is going to increase like your thermogenesis.
Right.
It helps increase your activity and your calorie deficit while not needing to decrease your food.
Okay.
And then I did that steady.
How much running are we talking here?
So I didn't do any at the time, but like some bodybuilders, it gets crazy. Like some people do like 2 hours of cardio every day, towards the end of their...
So that's like 15, 20 miles, whatever. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 10, 15 miles.
They usually do like walking. Like they'll either do like a Stairmaster. It's called like low intensity steady state.
Oh.
And they'll do, they'll go like really slow, but like very steady.
Right.
That's kind of like the most effective way. Like some people do HIIT, but generally the easiest way to do it is like a kind of slow and steady pace where you can kind of just like go mindless and just like keep going and keep going.
And that makes the veins pop.
Anything like when you start losing weight is when you start getting more vascular.
It was truly impossible to get as big as The Rock, Schwarzenegger, without taking anabolic steroids.
Pretty much, yeah. Like even people, what's a lot of people don't realize is that this is a lot about genetics as well. So even for me, for example, like if I'm being like super realistic, I don't know if I could ever get to like the same symmetry and proportions and size as Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because we have such different genetics. Like when you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, that's like peak genetics. Like this is like the best 0.00001% genetics in the world of, bodybuilding. And not everyone will have that. There's people that at the gym that you go to and you see like a normal guy, there's like a strong chance that person could be on anabolics. Like there's like random people that I'll meet all the time that say they've done like a cycle before.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't even know because they either like, one, didn't have the genetics for it, or two, they just didn't take it seriously enough. They don't train consistently. Their diets are horrible, things like that, or they just couldn't afford it.
If you take it and don't train, does it still feel really good?
For someone that's like suboptimal, so like if you had like a low testosterone level and you took it and didn't train, yeah, of course you're gonna feel better. But if you're like an 18-year-old who's already got like raging hormones, they already have like, high normal levels, like 800 nanograms per deciliter, you take steroids and you don't do anything, you might feel a little bit better, but it's not gonna be like drastically different.
What are your levels at now, or the last time you checked, deciliters?
So mine, when I was on TRT, is around like 700 to 800. I would only take like 100 to 150 milligrams per week when I'm like, that's called like a cruise. So I don't ever come off completely. I kind of just, it's called a blasted cruise.
So TRT is kind of the base, the lowest you'll go of how much you'll take. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about doing that, but I gotta pump out some kids with Carly first. It makes you infertile, right?
So there's a lot of things to that. Like, you could take things like HCG, for example, which will restore like fertility. That's what I plan to take.
But it's still like,
while I'm doing this,
it could be permanent though, whatever.
It's very unlikely.
Okay.
Especially if you're not like, so like there's people that have taken like, so some like gear users will like say that they're infertile, and like to an extent you kind of are, because you're not producing LH anymore, which is the one hormone that comes from your testes that helps increase testosterone. So if you don't have that in your body, you're less likely to be fertile. But some people will take gear and then they just like, they'll have sex with a girl unprotected and they'll get them pregnant because they thought originally they were completely infertile. When it turns out that they still are. And it can like still happen weirdly enough. So there's been like I read about this sometimes too, because I'm a little bit nervous about it too.
Yeah. Do you want kids?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Not anytime soon, but.
Do you have a girlfriend now?
No.
Okay.
I'm recently single.
Well, you'll get through
it. Yeah. I'm not worried.
That's yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
But yeah, so I was reading on like a blog or like a forum where like kind of some people talk about this. Those like Reddit forums and like random like internet forums that people like talk about all this stuff. And there was like several people that have like taken gear for 10 years straight, and then they'll come off completely, not even like worry about it, and then they still end up having kids.
All right.
And there's crazy like fringe cases like that where people just like didn't care at all. Like I plan to get on like HCG well before then, so that I can like restore some of those levels and ensure that my fertility is still strong.
If you went off everything completely, the TRT, everything, would you just like have a meltdown? Like what would happen?
So I'd probably have a meltdown because I'd be way smaller. No, I'm just kidding. No, but when you come off, your hormones start to fluctuate a lot. And there's like
and your body doesn't make itself testosterone anymore, and it does that ability come back? Yeah.
So you have to like restore it. So like things like I said, like HCG, for example.
Okay.
And then there's another thing called Novodex, which is a serum, and then you would take something like Clomid as well, and it helps restore your HPTA, which is going to restore a lot of that, endogenous like hormone production.
Okay.
I've done it before, so like.
Right. So in the last 6 years, you have gone off everything completely?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like more that we talked about with like the side effects stuff and like hair loss and.
Did you lose hair?
All that. I've been like pretty good with that. There's like medications that you can take for that as well. So I take something called dutasteride, and that helps reduce hair loss. And I don't have like a propensity for it too much. I kind of dealt with it right away. Like a lot of people kind of like, they kind of let it go, and they just think that they're not losing hair until it's like, you've lost a lot more hair once you start to notice than you've actually realized.
Right.
So when you get to like, a point where you have actually noticed that you've lost a lot of hair, you're at like really bad levels, and you're like really behind in terms of like any protocols that you need to get on everything at that point to like restore it and make sure it's not going away.
Yeah.
That's been like the bane of a lot of people, like in the fitness industry, like a lot of, like fake natties, for example, that'll start like losing their hair. Like you'll see a popular YouTuber, and he'll start losing his hair, and then all of a sudden his size drops off too. And you're like, wait, what just happened? And it's like, the theory is that they got off the gear to like stop the hair loss, but then because they stopped the gear, they lose a lot of size too. And it's like extremely transparent to anybody that understands this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You're 28. You're not worried? Do you build a tolerance at all? Like, do you have to keep taking more and more?
If you want to like keep progressing, you kind of need to increase your dosages.
Scary.
But I'm not at a point where it's like, I'm not at like a dangerous point. I've definitely upped like the echelon a little bit of dosages, but there's like, you can go really heavy into it. And
Okay.
there's like a point where you start to reach like diminishing returns. Like some guys will take like grams and grams of stuff, and those are like the top echelon of bodybuilders. But it's like, it goes kind of back to my point about, your genetics. So there's genetic response to like muscle building and just training in general, and then the genetic response to anabolics. So ideally you kind of have the genetic response to both of those that are very strong, and then you don't need to take as much. So there's guys like Chris Bumstead, for example, who are like really, really good. And I don't know how transparent he is about his dosages. I don't think he would lie too much, but he has kidney issues and like a kidney condition, so he has to be very careful about how much he's taking. But his genetics are so strong that it's kind of, people kind of think that he's not taking nearly as much as some of the other top bodybuilders. So
Everyone check out Tristan Nigro's YouTube channel. Thank you so much for doing this, man.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Really fun.
And yeah, let us know what you think of all this. I do have one more question.
Okay.
I've heard it can shrink your dick. Did that happen? Have you heard that? Shrink your balls, all that.
It was funny because I went on like ChatGPT and I was like, what if it's a layman ask a gear user? What are the common questions? So I wanted to prepare a little bit. I was like, so it's funny that you brought that up. So it can actually it can shrink your testicles, but it won't shrink the size of your dick. No.
Okay.
But because of like
has it shrunk your testicles?
I haven't really noticed anything. I mean, I think if I took like a before and after picture, I would have noticed it, but it's not something I'm like self-conscious or nervous about or anything like that.
Cool.
There's a famous bodybuilder that unfortunately passed away. His name is Rich Piana. And he has a famous video of him being like, he talks about this exact thing. And he's like, I hate that I'm misquoting it, but he's like, if the dick hangs lower than the balls or something like that, but he basically makes the claim that because your testicles are smaller, your dick's gonna look bigger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.